Happy Monday, my kings, queens, and emperors to the
Yes.
Things We Like podcast. It is Andrew and Brooks. Brooks, how are we doing today?
I'm doing amazing. This cough is a bitch. Sorry, Mom. My mom has actually watched these and she doesn't like that I'm swearing, so I'm gonna like pull it back. Love you, Mom. Love you, Mom. Sorry. I should be a better son.
Today we have our first guest on, good friend Will, goes by through the internet at Hi My Name on YouTube and on the Twitter Spaces, extraordinaire of the Kingdom Hearts and the Square Enix lores of Final Fantasy, the myth, the legend themselves. So glad to have you today and to
Thanks
chat.
for having me, man. I try. I've got nothing else better going on, so I spend all my time looking at this stuff and playing these games. So.
That's what we do, man. Like that's literally what we do. So give us a little bit of sorry, Andrew.
Oh, I was just gonna say the first thing is you guys both have a fondness for lores that make partially absolutely no sense to me.
Oh yes, we do. Could you do me one huge favor, Andrew? Could you
yes.
like leave the call and then come back? Because you're breaking up a little. Oh man, he's breaking up a little bit. So we'll fix it. We're going.
No, I think it's this.
Oh, is it?
So
well then leave it.
You continue and let me check.
Leave it. So okay, I'll take over while Andrew's fiddling around.
Yeah.
All right.
So my history with Will is back when I used to have social media, he would tag me in funny things and I didn't notice and I feel really bad. Also, Will has come to see me play with a band called Love, and like it was like a big full circle moment with me because he came to one of the shows and he recognized me and he was like, yo, and I was like, yeah, and it was this really great moment, and I left and I went, who was that? It's like, also dog cam on Spotify. There's a dog in Andrew's chair and she's really sweet. But that was a great moment for me. And I've secretly loved him ever since. And I've noticed his channel because he's got the big blue profile picture, and I noticed that. I have not forgotten that. So Andrew's like fixing his XLR, by the way. So we're doing it raw. We're doing it live. Bill Maher style. Yeah, it's Bill Maher. Okay, I got him confused with Bill
Maher?
No, Bill O'Reilly. Sorry, I did get him confused. I did get him confused. So my wires were crossed. It's Bill O'Reilly, not Bill Maher. Sorry.
It was Bill Murray.
Yeah, it was Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Eggy Pocket. That's who it
Bill
was.
Murray.
It was Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Everybody. So yeah, while you're here, damn it, hold on. We got a dog on screen. We love her. I've pet that dog IRL. So give us a little
Chinese
background.
crusteds.
Give us a little bit of a background on yourself, like things you like generally, because that's the whole name of the game on our podcast. Music, gaming, life, food, doesn't matter. Just a little bit.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, of course, like I'm a really big fan of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. I got into Final Fantasy because of Kingdom Hearts.
Yep.
And by proxy through all that, I got into JRPGs, ARPGs. Before, like I played video games, but it really wasn't until that Christmas morning when my older brother got a PS2 with Kingdom Hearts, and then I fell in love with gaming.
Yeah.
And that Christmas in 2002, and so love all that. I'm a really big fan of music. I'm in 3 different music projects currently, and they're all kind of different degrees of different styles. So, I mean, I love heavy music, love pop punk and electronic music, and really big into weightlifting in the last few years. So I try to be consistent with that. The last year I was committing a lot of like cookout slaughter, so that was not happening.
Yeah.
But I do like to lift weights. It's a big thing that is really important to me. And I mean, other than that, I mean, just like anime and reading manga and
he's one of us, everybody. He's one of us.
Yeah.
I need to get back into the gym this week. I have a super busy week this week. My goal is to go 3 days a week. I don't do a lot of heavy stuff. I just try to eat enough to maintain I fluctuate. A healthy weight is like 165 to 175 for me. So I'm just trying to like, I'm going for like fit dad bod. So that's sort of my goal.
That's the move, man. That's the move.
Yeah, so
Will's
that's
trying to be
I'm not
big
trying to.
bodybuilder.
I'm not trying to be like. I almost said Mr. Worldwide, but it's Mr. Universe. I am trying to be Mr. Worldwide. Like I am trying to be Pitbull. That's who I
Dale.
do is Dale. There was a guy actually that got a tattoo of a Pitbull dog with Pitbull's head on it, and Pitbull saw it and he brought him backstage and he like got to meet him. So I feel like I need to do that with just with that. I need to get that tattoos, but it wouldn't be genuine. It wouldn't be like, it'd be like, somebody else did it, so.
No, what you need to do is you need to get the side profile of Pitbull, but on your side profile.
Yo, like half, like it's like Two-Face
Half of
from
you is just
Batman.
Pitbull, yeah.
Half of me is, and I do like my facial hair, but like half beard and half like.
Will,
oh my god!
Don't give the problem is like he will do. Don't give him.
I'm shaking.
This whole
He
happier face has like half a sunglasses
That is
going
awesome.
over your eyelids and everything going back.
Holy shit!
He's got a pig. He's got a meme pig on his thigh.
I do. I have HogChamp on me. I got to show Will. I know he's probably seen it,
PogChamp.
but
We love it.
it's literally
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's-
Wowzers.
Yeah, dude, it's like that meme where it's like, it's like 911, I've been stabbed, and 911 replies with the hog, just like, or it's like, your son has died, and then it's like, it replies with that, so it's just like,
Holy
I've,
cannoli.
yeah, holy
Yeah.
mackerel, but like, I have loved that ever since, and it is permanently on me, and but yeah,
That's-
I love tattoos, and let's talk Kingdom Hearts, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a hard pivot, I know, but like
Oh no.
you are probably, I mean, I know the lore enough. I couldn't recite it from memory, but Andrew has told me that you're like you and Ian would like be like super on point with it because Ian knows the lore by heart.
Yep.
Haha. But but like I know it enough to be like, if you were telling me that, I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. I remember the first time I played Kingdom Hearts was Chain of Memories.
Okay.
So that was my jumping in point. And I used to cut out like keyblades out of cardboard and play with them. I thought that Sora held it from like, so it would be like a square. It's hard to describe, but like he didn't have a handle in the middle. He just held it from a square. Like it was just a square cut out. Cause when he spun it
yeah.
in the game, I thought he did it through his finger. So that was my little brain doing that. But like, you know the lore. You know how silly it is, and I respect that. I'm glad that you have embraced that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like there is a sense of
I don't even know what I asked, by the way. I'm so sorry. I totally just blanked.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I'm just jumping off. So like there is I think that people make the story and the lore of Kingdom Hearts out to be more convoluted than it actually is, at least in my opinion. Because like the way that I see it is that the base game is very, very straightforward. And a lot of times people try to over rationalize like, oh, well, why does light and darkness, like, why do these things not get along? And it's like, well, because it's light and darkness. Like, that's all you got to know, And as you progress through the games and you go in release order, like they drip feed you the lore enough to where they're building blocks, right?
Yeah.
And so then it's like if you have a Lego set and you just see all the pieces sitting around, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? But if you go through the instructions and you stack the little pieces up, all of a sudden you have an entire structure. You're like, I know how this works. I know how this was built and constructed. And I think the problem is too many people played one or two games and then they fell off. And then they're like, well, it's too complicated. And it's like, my guy, you just didn't play the game that came after it. So now you're confused. All you got to do is just play the next game,
I kind of have always felt the same way about it. Like it is silly. Yeah. But like, it's also, it is weird. But if you, like you said, you play the games in order. Like if you go from Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories to Kingdom Hearts 2, and that's the one downside of it is like even the mobile games matter to the lore. Like I've played Recoded. I know that shit. Like I know like I think I'm the only person I know that's ever played that on the DS. It was a remake of the DS game, Recoded. So you might be another one. You might be the second person I've ever met. Yeah, there you go. So I've played Recoded, and that game's strange, but like you said, if you just play them back to back, I mean, you may miss out on like some super nuanced details, but I feel like, I guess the core of it is pretty, here it is what it is, like there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's
well,
so you go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you find that like that game franchise in particular kind of struggles from console hopping a little too much? Like, because I feel like it does console hop a lot, and I feel like do you feel like you miss important things if you don't go off just the main lines? I think that's more of what I'm trying to say.
Got you. Yeah. So, yeah, to a degree. And one of the reasons being is because every game is not a side game necessarily. Each game is just as important as the next. And because of the console hopping, I remember being like when I was in middle school and high school, I was so bummed out because I didn't have a PSP. I didn't have a 3DS for a long time. No, exactly. And so like I was somebody who was frustrated by that as well. And part of that is like, a lot of people try to blame Tetsuya Nomura, the creator or the creative director of the entire series. They try to pin that on him, like, oh, it's his fault that all this stuff is happening. And there is to a point where he was excited about the capabilities of this new tech, because like during like the early 2000s and late 90s, that was like there was such a jump in tech for gaming, from graphics to everything else. People were being very, very innovative. And so, of course, there was this sense of excitement. But the other thing, too, is that there was a lot of executives that were like, this new thing is out. We need to take this and put it on there. I would have to find where it was, but I remember reading somewhere that apparently Birth by Sleep was supposed to be a PS2 game. But because of the PSP being fairly popular, especially in Japan, they were like, we need to put this on here, so condense it down. I have a lot of issues with Birth by Sleep as a game.
Me too.
I think as a story, it's wonderful. It's basically Star Wars, but but like I love that game, but I also have a love-hate relationship with it because I feel that its potential wasn't realized.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop in and add to that because I have beaten Birth by Sleep. I've not completed it, but I've beaten it. I played the remake. It's on the 2.5. Or is it? It's 2.5 collection.
Yeah, 2.5.
Right? Okay, so I have played it. I actually streamed it a long time ago. The secret boss fights are ass, and very cheesable. Very cheesable, but I think they went a little too hard in the difficulty of that. And it's not a perfect system. I think it's a fun game. I think it's a perfectly fine game, gameplay wise. I agree with the story. I think it's so like interesting that they prequelized, that's not a word, but like they went backwards to tell us what, like when Aqua, Terra, and Ventus, how they're connected to Sora, Riku, and Kairi, and how like they all got their Keyblades and all that stuff. I think it's really cool. And then like Xehanort, represent. But like that, his relationship with Terra, and then like Ericus the Master, voiced by Mark Hamill, which is crazy, and then Ericus, or not Ericus, but Xehanort with Leonard Nimoy. Like that was just amazing casting. Like
absolutely,
oh my god, amazing casting. And like, but yeah, I agree. To add to your point about the console hopping, that's a very nuanced take that I've never really considered. But yeah, like it like generally is an issue because some people like didn't have certain consoles, and like I didn't have. I had a PSP, but I never got Birth by Sleep. So that's just my fault. I'm gaslighting my little baby self.
And I was gonna say another thing is that it's not that they console hopped. They started by console hopping in between like main home system, but then they hopped over to Nintendo for Dream Drop, right?
Yeah,
wasn't Nintendo Dream Drop Distance?
Yes.
So it's like that was a total left turn from the mainly Sony based stuff.
They also had
that
358 over
prior.
2 days, which was on the DS.
That was the other one.
And Recoded and Chain of Memories and like all of that was Nintendo. And yeah, so I mean, there is this degree, especially because like, I mean, when you're a kid, like, you can't just like, especially when you're like a middle schooler and early high schooler, you can't just go buy a console, you know? Like, I mean, you're lucky if you get allowance, So so that part is frustrating. And the 1.5 and 2.5 collection and 2.8, did alleviate a lot of that. However, we did have to wait until 2013, 2014, 2017 to actually get those collections. And so now, like I guess the bump in the road now is that it's not that the games are inaccessible in terms of you don't have the consoles. But yet for some reason people still complain about that. Like, oh, I don't want to jump from console to console. And it's like, dude, you can pay like $100 and you've got everything all the way up to 3 on any platform you want now.
They have it on PC too, don't they?
Yeah, they have it on Epic Games. And like
crazy.
But I think the problem is now is that a lot of people who want to get into the series see that, oh, there are 10 games here. And that is a daunting thing to get through. And like for me, I think that if you play something and you really resonate with it, it's not going to be an issue, right? That would be like somebody who is like, well, I don't really want to get into like One Piece because there's a lot of chapters, but then they read the first volume and then they go, this is amazing. And so then they fly through the rest of it like it's nothing. So I understand that argument, though I don't think that argument is taking into account that if people resonate with it, it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, but there was a lot of console hopping, and I mean, there was the advantage, at least with the DS games and whatnot, that if you had a 3DS, you could play the DS Lite games, you know, and so like there was that advantage with it. For me, when I was a kid, there. Exactly. And like when I was a kid, like I couldn't afford those consoles, so I just emulated everything on like my laptop. And it ran at like 4 frames per second. But I played them anyway. You know, it's actually kind of funny. Back in like 2014, 2015, I met with a friend of mine that I went to high school with because he had a 3DS that he didn't want anymore. So he sold it to me with a bunch of games, and I bought it solely so I could play Dream Drop Distance.
Right.
And it was so funny because we met in front of a Publix that I worked at, and it felt like a drug deal because like he walks up to me with like this plastic like bag, and I'm like, hey man, do you have it? He goes, yeah, I do. How much you want? 120. All right, cool. Here you go. All right, dude, have a good one. And we did it in front of a cop, and the cop was eyeing us. I'm like, dude, I pulled out. It's a game console. You're fine.
Like, yeah, that's funny. You can search it, and the cop comes up. He's like, "What the fuck you doing, Dream Drop Distance?" And like, I don't know why he sounds like that, but like, you know what I mean?
I mean, in my neck of the woods, they sound like that.
Yeah, so. You're a Southern boy like we are, so I get it. I get it. Yeah, dude, I love Kingdom Hearts so much. Like, I have some incredible. I'm gonna pick your brain about this because some of the memories I have about Kingdom Hearts, which I had a big imagination as a kid. I would literally like. It's a super nerdy. I would go into Walmart and like got anything that resembled like, you know, like the starter weapons that they had. Like they had like the struggle bats, or they had like wooden swords and stuff like that. I loved that as a kid, and I would pretend that I was in that world. I'd go out in my backyard and just swing around and stuff like that, and pretend like I was part of that. I also drew the cards from Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Made my own deck out of them. I recreated the Keyblades. So I did all that. I was infatuated. Like you said, when you play something that really resonates with you and really sticks with you, like Kingdom Hearts was just one of those things that like it hooked me immediately. Here's another funny story with Kingdom Hearts that I have that you'll get a kick out of. I got stuck on Kingdom Hearts 1 for like 3 years, and I never got past Destiny Island because I couldn't find that goddamn mushroom inside the cave. And you know exactly which one I'm talking about because it was so dark on the PS2, and I was playing the PS2 version, and I couldn't see it. And it's like, oh, it grows in dark, moist places. And I was like, where am I going? You know what I mean? Like,
it's so crazy because like I actually have my PS2 sitting right here next to me.
Mine's next to me as well.
I have like an HDMI converter, so when I play things through there, I'm like, oh yeah, everything looks fine. At one point though, it was broken, and I had to repair that converter. So for a while, my roommate was letting me borrow just a normal component converter. And I plugged that in, and I was trying to play Lego Star Wars on it. And I was like, this shit is so dark. I can't see anything going on. And then I realized, okay, like I wasn't crazy. Like I felt the same way when I was a kid. There'd be games I would play, and I'm like, where do I go? Everything's dark. All I see is the character model smack dab in the middle, just running in place. Like, where am I going?
I love that.
100%.
Oh, man.
So how was the transition from getting into Kingdom Hearts into okay, Final Fantasy. I guess obviously the characters being a thing, but like, what was there other things that drew you that way? And then like, what made you go, okay, I'm gonna love this franchise just as much as Kingdom Hearts?
So, all right. So when I first played Kingdom Hearts, I had no idea what Final Fantasy was at all. And so I remember going through Jiminy's journal, trying to find out what these characters were from, because like I had seen like every single one of them shows you the Disney film it's from, and then the year that film released.
Yep.
So I was like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at this, I'm like, I have no idea what Final Fantasy is. I asked my older brother, because my older brother at that time had played Final Fantasy X, and he's like, oh, it's one of the greatest games ever. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, it's got characters like from Destiny Islands in it. And I remember like looking at the cover, seeing an island in the background, thinking, oh, this is just going to be like Kingdom Hearts. So I thought the combat and everything would be the same. And I played it and I was like, this doesn't play like that. And at first I was like very resistant to it, because I like turn-based when it's done right.
Yep.
But at the time, like, because like during that time, like I wasn't like someone who was into I was into Pokemon, but I wasn't like I wasn't allowed to really do anything with Pokemon.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
During that whole Bible Belt scare that people were having, where it's like you're teaching your kids to emulate demons. And so I was like, it's, you know, and I'm like, it's an electric mouse that shoots a lightning bolt.
Dude,
I don't know.
It's whatever, yeah.
But so at that time I hadn't played those games. So I had never played a turn-based game before. So I was like, this is weird. I was an ADHD kid, so I was kind of like, it was hard to hold my attention. So I kind of like left it alone. And then I went back like a couple of years later, back in like 2004, 2005. So not super long afterward. Went back through and played it and tried to sincerely play it. And I couldn't put it down. I fell in love with the characters.
I literally just smiled from that. Like, that's cheesy, but like I literally was like, oh, I love that.
Like it was just like it felt so like narratively it was what I was looking for from a game, because I mean, I had Chain of Memories and I love Chain of Memories. I needed something to hold me over for Kingdom Hearts 2, because like even to this day,
I feel that
I like when I play games, especially if they're narratively driven, I will play them and I will think, does this make me feel the way that Kingdom Hearts whenever I play any of those games feels? It's a good barometer
for sure.
Yeah, and so like I played through it and I'm like, this makes me feel the way I do with Kingdom Hearts, but it's not as like goofy necessarily. And it had a lot of these themes that felt like I felt like I was watching like a movie with my older brother or my parents, like something that was like older than me.
Especially because you said you came in at 10, right?
Yeah.
So like Final Fantasy X, especially that almost movie like cutscenes. They were that one especially had like, more than a cutscenes and like the large life scale that compared to the previous one.
For sure. I mean, well, I mean, it really was though, because I mean, you look at like previous Final Fantasies, they all would try to outdo themselves, and then especially when Final Fantasy VII rolled onto the scene, it basically changed the way that games were made forever, especially narrative-driven ones. Yeah, we look back at it now and they look like little Lego figures, but at the time it was such a like the storytelling and the cinematic presentation of it was unlike anything else. And so with Final Fantasy VIII, they're like, we're going to try that again. And then when Final Fantasy IX did the same thing, but with 10 it was the first Final Fantasy to have any voice acting in it whatsoever, which was a massive, massive deal. And when you compare that to say, I mean, Final Fantasy IX, you could compare it to, but it was more chibi. If you were to compare it to something like Final Fantasy VIII, the jump in graphics was so massive that it just caught people's attention. And of course, like I will say as an aside, because of things like that, this is something that Naoki Yoshida, who is the creative director for Final Fantasy XIV and the producer for 16, he talked about this, where because of those metrics that Square Enix kept setting for themselves, they ended up having this very unhealthy relationship with graphics to the point where like you would look at something like Final Fantasy 15 back when it was Versus 13, or Final Fantasy 13. They would do this whole thing where they would create a trailer that's a big cinematic thing, and then they would just then show the logo. But at the time when they would show those were just concepts. Nothing was set in stone. It was all about trying to wow the crowd to be like, this next thing is going to be prettier than the last one, and it's going to be even grander than the last one. And they started to kind of lose touch with what people really connected with Final Fantasy, at least broadly, where people were like, we just want compelling stories, wonderful systems, exploration that feels intentional and sincere. And I think I don't like, I'm of the mind that I don't really think there's any bad Final Fantasy game. I haven't played 2, so maybe I'm wrong, but
I have, and it's a little janky, but I don't think it's bad.
Yeah. So every Final Fantasy has its merit. I'm not of the mind that there's a bad Final Fantasy. However, when it comes to the broader resonance that a game is going to have with the broader audience globally, they're going to decide what's good and what's not. I like Final Fantasy 15, but Final Fantasy 15's got a lot of problems, and a lot of people call it a gas station simulator because it's just big, open, wide world. There's not really a whole lot in it. It's just big, empty space. And it kind of fell through the trappings of what open world games from the likes of Ubisoft and other people were doing at the time.
I see. Yeah, because that was like a thing. Because when Assassin's Creed came out, it kind of just set this precedent. And it's like, oh, this is kind of what gaming is doing now. Because like everybody loved Assassin's Creed, and like whether you love Ubisoft or Assassin's Creed or hate them, those games sell. You know, people buy them. People buy millions of copies of those games, and they did something that, like, I think Elden Ring came in and Breath of the Wild came in and like whipped its ass, you know, and like it was like, they cracked their knuckles and are like, here's how it's done. Let me show you how it's done. And like, because the formula was kind of getting stale, just from my knowledge. And I have like a very baseline knowledge of this, and what you're saying is correct. Talking about resonating with people through Final Fantasy and stuff like that. First of all, have you seen the old JonTron video where it's like Final Hallway 13 where he's like, hey, try going right. And he goes straight. And he goes, hey, try going left. And he's like, I can't play the game. I can't play the game. I can't play it. And he's like freaking out.
Yeah.
That's all I know of that. So maybe that could have been a reason why they shifted into that direction. But like you said, they're more worried about the presentation rather than the substance, it seemed like.
Exactly. And to that point too, because I actually haven't seen that video, but that whole idea of it being a hallway simulator is a joke that's very, very prominent still in like the Final Fantasy community. I actually have a whole video that kind of relates to this that I made like 2 years ago about how Final Fantasy Versus 13 turned into Final Fantasy 15, which then was kind of reintegrated into Kingdom Hearts 3. And one of the problems that they had between those two games was that they were very different games, but they were part of this grander this grander narrative and project that Square Enix was trying to push called the Fabula Nova Crystallis, which is essentially what they were trying to do was take a general mythos of deities and gods and then almost kind of contextualize them for each game, kind of the way that you have all these other movies and games and stuff that just very freely use like the Greek pantheon or Norse gods in their own way of whatever they want. But it's all like consistent in terms of the lore is similar.
So
in
it's
terms
like
of
taking a base concept and creating, it's like world building essentially.
Exactly. And so like when they built Final Fantasy 13, they were creating this engine in-house because they were thinking we could outsource this to other people, kind of like what Epic does with Unreal Engine. And it was a very pretty engine, but the problem that they had was that a lot of it wasn't finished and they didn't have a lot of proper documentation and manuals for it. So they were building everything in real time while they were trying to build the game.
Wow.
So they were constantly trying to like crash course themselves and learn how to do things. And it got to the point where the engine just couldn't fit all these different types of games that they were trying to do. And so they're like, we just need to tailor it to Final Fantasy 13. That is our flagship title. We need to get it out. So they tailored it to where it was very linear, which it's also kind of funny, like as an aside, that people talk about it being very linear when the director for that game, Motomo Toriyama, is the guy who was the director for Final Fantasy X and X-2. And if you look back at those games are also hallway simulators. They just don't look like it because you have big open fields in the background. That's true,
because I've played 10 a little bit, and I know what you mean. It's like it pushes you in a specific direction, but it's got all these, like, the scenery around you is big. Like, Besaid is big around, but, like, it's really just, like, here's where you can go. So, yeah.
It's just basically just a single line. And so when they were doing that, they're like, cool, everything's tailored for that. We got the game out.
Mhm.
However, they were like, we have this whole other game that we've been advertising that's from Tetsuya Nomura, and it's supposed to be like this, like very gritty, dark, violent, rated M Final Fantasy that people were just chomping at the bit for. And so they're like, cool, let's just take that engine and put it in. But then they realize that this engine can't handle this massive open world design that we had intention for it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's just breaking. Things are clipping through the floor. Things are breaking in half. Nothing's
Damn.
working. So then they're like, all right, this has taken too long. At this point, it had been about like 6 or 7 years. I'm like, okay, fuck it. We have to change it. So then they made a brand new engine, Luminous Engine.
Mhm.
And then we're like, we're just going to put it on PS4, turn it into Final Fantasy 15. Tetsuya Nomura left, started working on Kingdom Hearts 3. And it's really a shame because that engine is really pretty, but then it was made in a studio called Luminous Productions like afterward, and that studio was the studio that made Forspoken, and Forspoken did so poorly that it just imploded, and then they got reabsorbed by Square. So it was just all this money and all this time and effort.
Yeah.
Because like even like with you look at Final Fantasy 15, they spent about a decade working on this project from 2006 or 2005, I guess, when they announced it, all the way up to 2016 when they actually released the game. And even then, they had all this DLC. So there were people that had been working on that game for a decade who still weren't done with it after it released.
Oh my god.
So they were making all this DLC, and the DLC was good. Then they made a second battle pass for more DLC that had really interesting concepts. But then I think Tabata, the guy who came in to direct it, who's also fun fact integrating back into Kingdom Hearts, he was the director for Recoded.
Wow.
But he ended up like dropping off the project and quitting Square because he got so much hate. It was very, very mentally taxing on him because he basically inherited this problem child project. And so then they're like, okay, cool, we're not doing the rest of the DLC. Sorry. And then they put it in a book.
This is just kind of an aside to that. I hate when that happens with artists. Like that happened to Linkin Park. Like they tried to get, because Mike Shinoda I think he's a genius. Like it's very obvious.
Absolutely.
And like that whole group of it, like with Chester and everything, when they started to deviate and do something different and bigger than like, Meteora or Hybrid Theory, when they started getting like more, the way that they ended up sounding, people hate. I remember being in high school and people were like, oh, I hate Linkin Park. I'm like, I didn't understand it. I was like, why? Like, why do people hate? So I feel like it's a little similar with that. Like, you can draw parallels to that between him. And so I have a lot of empathy for people who feel that way when they're like, they're just trying to make something amazing. And it ends up not being what they, because there's so many factors that go into making a Final Fantasy game. Like I don't believe it's like one person. It's kind of like why the Paper Mario series sucks dick now, because like it's not just the follies of one person. It's like multiple moving parts that end up making
it's a complicated thing. Yeah.
So well, exactly,
that
because
makes sense.
Because these games are the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
Because like every game is like no game is perfect.
No.
Like at least in a very
we love Kingdom
empirical
Hearts,
sense.
so we could say that with our chest. Like we know.
Oh, absolutely.
However,
but
like I have like Kingdom Hearts tattoos all over my body because this series means so much to me. Like who cares if it's not perfect?
Yeah.
Exactly. And like every game's got its issues, but it's the things that are sincere, the things that resonate with the player, and those are the things that make it good. Because like I know people who love Final Fantasy 14 solely because of its narrative, and they love this story that has spanned a decade, and now they're moving on to the next thing. Like I swear, the Shadowbringers expansion is the best Final Fantasy story told in the last 20 years because it's so poignant and nuanced, and they had a whole like 9 or so years just to build up to it. So they had that advantage. But then other people will look at Final Fantasy 14 and they'll say, well, I love the MMO aspect of it. I love being able to talk with my friends, or I love the ultimate raids,
Right.
And so like everybody's got little things in every single game that like resonates with them. And that's what makes, in my opinion, games so special.
I have a really close friend of mine who loves Final Fantasy 14. That's the MMORPG, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the online one. They love it. And it's like, it's much more, from what I've been told it's a lot more user friendly than like to World of Warcraft. You know,
Absolutely.
it's more like maybe not user friendly, but beginner friendly. Like if I wanted to hop into MMORPGs or MMOs, I guess for short, if it would be a good jumping off point for me. Also, one question I want to pick your brain about, and then we'll read the chat. Do you think, taking everything that you just said about like the production and like building of the engines and everything, do you think they succeeded or failed with Final Fantasy 16? Because I've heard that game is phenomenal, and it's a big game. It's more graphic. There's like sex scenes. It's more mature, and that's sort of kind of the direction that they wanted to go. Do you think that they like ultimately succeeded with that, or do you think they may have dropped the ball? Because I've been wanting to try it myself, but I would assume that you know about that game, even if you haven't played it. Like I'm sure you keep up with it. So.
Oh yeah, well I mean like when it dropped, I took a week off of work, so
that's our guy. That's why you're here.
Which I also just did for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So
yes,
but I think that it goes back to what I was talking about, how everybody is going to have a different relationship with the same game, and so I mean I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. Like there's a group on Facebook called Ultima RPGs that's run by one of my favorite YouTubers, the Night Sky Prince. He's a big Final Fantasy, Persona, Square Enix JRPG guy.
Sweet.
And in that, like when the game came out, there was so much shit slinging because you had people that were like, this is the evolution of the series. Every single Final Fantasy is different from the last. They tried new things. And then you had other people saying, why isn't it turn-based? Why is it so dark? Why like these characters like mean nothing to me? Like I think that in my mind, Final Fantasy 16 succeeded. But when you look at something like, if you look at old school fans who really love that turn-based 4 dudes standing in a row type stuff, like it's not for them, right? Or you have other people saying that it's a Game of Thrones clone, which I haven't seen Game of Thrones. I've heard that it's kind of similar in certain aspects of the story. But I mean, I loved it. I loved the fact that Final Fantasy went back to being high fantasy again, instead of being like a cyberpunk kind of like steampunk thing.
Almost like something that it's not.
Roots.
And then, like Final Fantasy is not limited to, just that, because, I mean, in Final Fantasy 7, you have like big corporations and, it's funny. Ian's calling me now, but I'm not going to answer. Love you, Ian, but no, I got something to do. But I mean, like, you think of, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say they have like Geneva, and it's like there's a lot of technology, and like it goes from, because like the earlier Final Fantasies from like 1 to like maybe even like 5. I mean, even 1 has technology. You go up and you fight Tiamat, but you go up into the sky and there's robots and X, Y, Z. There are like sci-fi elements ever since from like day 1.
There's an entire game based off of it being in robots.
Yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy 6, you start and you're in the mechs and you're walking in the snow. Like it's like it's a part of its identity, but it's like it never leans too heavily into that, or like generally never leans too heavily into that. It's a mixture of medieval and like magic and fantasy and sci-fi, and that's what it's always been, and it's always endearing because of that. So, but
so before we get into chat, I would love to ask Will last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is, if you're talking to somebody who wants to get into Final Fantasy but has never played a Final Fantasy game,
good question. I need this.
Where to start?
It's it's kind of loaded,
and I know that's a very nuanced question.
Because it's really just going to depend on the person. You kind of have to figure out, okay, what kind of, like, first of all, do they want turn-based, or do they want something that's more real-time in action, right? I would say if they want something that's more real-time action, maybe do Final Fantasy 16, or do like 16 or 15, or the 7 remake trilogy is a wonderful place to start for that. And then you can also ask them like what kind of aesthetic they're looking for. Are they looking for more high fantasy? Then maybe something like 16 or 3 or something would be really good for them. Or if they want more sci-fi, they could go with 7 or 8 or like games like that. So it's all like kind of contingent on just kind of what they're looking for in their game and what their taste is, because there's a Final Fantasy out there for everybody.
That's what I love about it so much. And like, I've noticed that, and I've really been itching to get into the real time because we love Kingdom Hearts, so it translates over to the more real time action gameplay. And I mean, I love the turn based stuff too. It has its place. I mean, it is dated, objectively dated, but it has its place, you know. Like,
absolutely.
and they have like they change it up a little bit. Like in 6, you have like a bar, and you can make it. Don't you have the option to switch between like pure turn-based, and then you could do like the real-time sort of hybrid, like where like the meter charges up and then you attack and then you have to like do that and all that stuff.
That's the ATB system, the active time battle system.
Right.
The whole idea back then was like they were like, how can we make this feel more intense to where it feels real time, but it's not? And a lot of that was because of tech limitations, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's the thing too, is that a lot of people want to say, though, this is the heart and soul of Final Fantasy, and I kind of disagree, because I feel that a lot of you look back and you look contextually at a lot of the systems that were put in place back then, and a lot of it is just because they had tech limitations. Like you couldn't play necessarily like real time. I mean, you could technically with things like Zelda, but on like a SNES, right? So there are certain things you could do, but not to the scale that they wanted, where you have multiple people to choose from. But like, I think that turn-play
sets.
Exactly. And I think that like turn-based still has its place. You look at something like Persona or Shin Megami Tensei, like those games still are turn-based, but they do it in a way that feels novel and feels engaging and exciting, and you don't feel like you don't feel like you're just, oh, I'm interrupted again. Now I got to figure out what to do and make this thing last and go through the animations. You actually feel like you're being drawn in because of those games, because they find ways to visually and mechanically pull you in and make you feel engaged.
I love it.
Well, and if you like those kinds of games, those still exist in other formats like Live Alive and those kind of like those 2D, 3D like merger games.
The HD 2D stuff.
Yeah, the HD 2D stuff, dude. And they're so sick. And some of those games are very inspired by early Final Fantasy.
Like that?
Dude, Octopath Traveler, Bravely Default. Like if you want a game that feels like
Triangle,
so good,
Triangle
dude.
Strategy.
Triangle Strategy. Like if you want games that are still have a Square Enix DNA in a lot of ways, and even like a lot of the systems, because a lot of the magic names and everything are still like the same. You can go play Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default, and they're pretty much Final Fantasy in everything but name. And so people can still like play those games and play new stories and experience new experiences that have some modern some modern sensibilities that are integrated into old school design. And so there is still stuff out there for people to enjoy from Square Enix that feels like old Final Fantasy. In the same way. It just doesn't say Final Fantasy in the name.
Yeah, I love that. So let's hop into chat real quick. So we're gonna start from up to Chloe says very cute dog. Yeah, and then Andrew says thanks. So true, he will run with anything. That's true. I'm a menace. It's already being drawn up. It's already on his skin now. Hog champ forever. Dr. Deathwish says I had an Atari when I was younger. I guess I'm the oldest generation when it comes to games. Dude, Pitfall is still badass. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Pitfall is awesome. Tristan,
some of those games are unnecessarily hard.
They are. But I mean, that's just the way they used to be. That's a whole nother can of worms. But Tristan says speak for yourself. He is probably roasting me, but that's fine. He has the pass. Russell, Carp, a bit late for me. I used to pretend I was in a game called Archlord. I had a small hatchet, ended up chopping a tree so often it fell down. Yeah, that's kind of how I was with like bats and stuff. I'd go out and pretend I was like struggling, like at a struggle tournament and stuff. Yeah. I've been playing Final Fantasy since I was like second grade. 10 and 10-2 were revolutionary. This is all Russell, by the way.
They really were.
Sorry if I'm going kind of fast, but
story-wise, you're good. Graphics-wise, story-wise,
I'm speedrunning the chat portion, but it's awesome.
The span of 10 and 10-2 was crazy.
I remember, I remember a friend of mine a long time ago in like fourth grade having 10-2 on his PS2 in his tiny little room. Oh, excuse me, in his tiny little room. But in 7 there was Shinra Corp. That was Geneva is like I may have misspoke. Geneva is like the help me out. I know the name.
The mom.
Are you talking about Genova?
Genova, that's what I meant.
Yeah, it's
Genova.
Genova.
Yeah,
Not
Genova.
the Geneva
It's-
Convention.
it's-
Sorry, Genova. It's Genova. My bad. I know Materia. I know Shinra. I know,
Yeah.
but I've never played that, so I did misspeak earlier. So that was my fault.
Genova is a essentially spoilers, an alien life form
Yeah,
that,
spoilers.
that visited Gaia, the planet.
Okay, yeah. Now I'm
like
now it's
2,000 years
coming back
prior.
to me.
Yeah.
So that went like uncorrected for like 20 minutes, and there's people. I'm sure there's gonna be at least one person like listening to this just biting their nails, going, "He said it
Cringing.
fucking wrong." But yeah, I haven't played those games. I'm trying my best to get to them, so we will in the future. Let's see.
In
Caleb,
7, there was the Shinra Corp. In 10, there was a young boy who built a company that did the same thing Shinra did. It was like it circled back.
I
I
see.
was like, that's a really interesting, like,
Mhm.
Yeah,
like a
you-
like
there
a
was
that's super
circle
cool.
of life type deal, and then
And what's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
funny about that too is that in Final Fantasy VII Remake, when you're in the Shinra headquarters, you can look at there's a whole wall of staff and like buildings and accomplishments and stuff. If you look at there is a staff group photo in that building somewhere on the wall, and you'll see all these guys in suits that are all Shinra guys. And then there is the one guy who's named Shinra with his mask from Final Fantasy X, and they put him in that group photo as a cameo.
wow,
that's
sick.
amazing.
Also, Nacho Walrus is my friend Caleb, and he likes music and he likes going to shows. He was probably, I don't remember, Caleb, I don't remember if you were at the Woe Is Me show when we played, but Will was there. He's a big music guy, show guy too, so you two would get along very well. He said Bravely
He says
Default. There
Bravely
you go.
Default.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Chloe says Octopath mentions. I've been wanting to play that and Bravely Default too for forever.
So Octopath has been on my queue list on Steam for
I was not Sedge.
freaking since it came out.
It's
Yeah.
so good, man.
Also, he said, I think we're also failing to realize that one of the largest franchises in the world is turn-based is Pokemon. So yeah, that's
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
the largest in the entire world, which is crazy to think, and it's turn-based. So, but then again, like that also gets into a nuanced conversation of like, well, it's been around forever, and the formula hasn't changed until our Legend Arceus. So
I was gonna say they are also shifting their focus.
they're working on it.
necessarily in the combat portion, but they are shifting.
They
some of
are,
their-
yeah. It's starting to move, and we're starting to see it. AZ looks amazing. Also, Angie, shout out to Angie. We love Angie. She's a big part of the community as well. This is our friend Will. We're doing our first guest appearance on the podcast, which I've been loving this, by the way. We might go over a little
Yeah.
bit, but I don't care because I love picking his brain about games. Tristan says, I grew up with an N64, but was around during older consoles. Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie are my heart and soul. I have an actual hard copy of both of them, and I love those games as well. Tooie is hard, and it was a little confusing for me, but Banjo-Kazooie is I think that's a perfect game for what it is, like a platformer.
I loved Banjo Tooie.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's so good. It's
And
got
then-
the adventure thing that Legend of Zelda
Yes.
does, where it's like the world is so big and there's so many little Easter eggs to find. But if you
Mhm.
want online,
Yeah.
you can also. It does the thing I think what you were talking about nowadays don't do, because they either do hallways or they do the massive like
Mhm.
spread of land. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually think Banjo Tooie is a really good example of the thing that does both of those things very
it does.
well.
You're
because
so
sometimes-
right.
because to complete certain objectives, you actually have to go between different places. So you actually do explore world itself
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
complete the game, but there is a very strong, up till a certain point, is a very strong level, next level, next level,
Yeah,
next
I
level,
agree. You
next
know-
level. And then to a point, you actually have to start backtracking and doing all of these other like missions to get to further yourself to the point.
Dr.
I do love that
Deathwish
game so
said,
much.
sorry to cut you off, Andrew. Yeah, stop talking.
No, you're good.
I'm just kidding. I remember Dr. Deathwish says, I remember playing the first Final Fantasy on his IBM computer. That's wild. That game's hard, and I'll get into that. And once I'm done with the chat for now, I have a few more questions for Will, and then we'll hop into some more music-related stuff because
Yeah,
he's
we'll
also
talk
a
music
musician,
stuff.
and I want to pick his brain about music because we love music. Caleb says, watch Advent Children. Russell says, I was supposed to be in the same timeline as 7. He was talking about something else. Angie says her favorite game of all time is Sly, which is Sly Cooper is a great series.
I love Sly. I really wish they would make another one because
Oh, yeah.
like I just I feel like Sly especially is a franchise that could do really, really well right now, because I feel like a lot of games, especially from PlayStation Studios, are feeling
Right.
pretty homogenous personally.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
like it. I like that formula, but it's getting to a point where I'm like, I just want them to do something creative
Oh, if they
and
dropped
unique.
it now, people are nostalgic for it. So, and what you were saying
Yeah.
about games resonating with people, that's basically what Angie says here. It's like the story, the characters, everything about it, the gameplay, like it resonates a lot with her. So, like, the same for you in Final Fantasy. It's just like, and Kingdom Hearts, so there's these games that we grow up with that really touch us and really affect us. So,
Also, that style of platforming isn't been touched
yeah,
in the
it's like a
last,
stealth
like,
platformer.
5 or so years.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I love the original Sly
I
Cooper
can't-
for sure.
and I think that's it. It could, like you said, be brought back,
Mhm.
freshened up a little bit, cleaned up, make me some of the mechanics get touched up a little bit, maybe lean into the stealth a little bit in areas and a little more into the platforming in some other areas, and you could really make a game I think could crush right now.
Oh yeah,
Like I
Oh,
really
yeah.
agree with that statement.
Mhm.
That's
so
that's a
sick.
good take.
Because like you look at a game like Hi-Fi Rush, which as far as I know is not a platformer, but it has like that cartoony style, and it feels like a game that would have come out on the GameCube.
Mhm.
And that game did, I mean, it didn't meet the metrics that Microsoft had set for them, which, you know, corporate, whatever.
Yeah.
But when you look at a game like that, that game resonated and people were clamoring like, I really
Is it similar
fucking
to
wish
Jet
this
Set
was on
Radio?
PS4.
Yes.
I don't, well, I guess so.
in art style,
I
in
haven't
art
played
style,
it,
kind of.
Mhm.
but
I got
but
you.
yeah, people looked at that game and they're like, I just really wish that was on Nintendo and on PlayStation. And now it is, which is like really, really cool. And so like people are like younger players and people who were kids back then are craving games like that, because everything now is like, well, not everything, but a large majority of things now, if you're trying to get like a AAA experience, it's all hyper realistic.
Yeah.
You off center, camera over shoulder type stuff. Hold down triangle to move the wall.
Yeah.
Like you know, and like that has its place. But the problem is now
Sure.
everybody's doing it, and
You
so
know
now
what's
it just
really
it doesn't
funny?
feel special.
Also, I want to preface, sorry if I cut either of you off. I'm just like, and I'm so engaged in both y'all's conversations right now. I'm just like, I'm like this, you know, I'm giddy about it, but like, and that's cheesy again, but it doesn't matter. Like I'm having a great time. But it's funny you say that about AAA games, because AAA games are shitting the bed right now. And games like Baldur's Gate, Helldivers 2, and like Elden Ring is like, that's one of the last great AAA title games that came out, because Elden Ring was literally like, hold my beer. And then they just did it. You know, and then
Yep.
Tears of the Kingdom came out. Nintendo's still, I mean, I don't agree with everything they do as a business, but again, another conversation. But they made Tears of the Kingdom, and that game's badass. And it's Andrew's favorite
Yeah.
game, and my favorite game
One
is
of my
Elden
favorite
Ring.
games of all time.
So there are good AAA games like Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3 changed everything. Like it's a full game that like, and it's AAA. That's what a AAA game should be. Is like
Exactly.
Baldur's Gate 3, a complete package. Even Dragon's Dogma 2 just dropped, and I saw a little bit of the controversy with the microtransactions, and even still, like a game like Dragon's Dogma 2 has the microtransactions, but Capcom apparently has been doing it for years, and you know, all that to say, Cyberpunk, Caleb said Cyberpunk did it as well. Their release was literally so terrible, but I've heard that Cyberpunk has recovered with actual
It's good
decent.
now.
Yeah, I've heard it has decent content now. I've never played it personally, but that's just word on the street.
For sure.
But yeah, AAA games are just, I don't know how we got on this conversation because we've been talking about so much stuff, but like AAA games are shitting the bed, but then you get all these like, these people that are coming in, like again, Baldur's Gate 3, Helldivers 2. Oh, you were talking about how there's like a formula to the AAA game. Like that you're like your yearly Call of Duties, your like standard, like maybe like your Ubisoft games, maybe like your EAs, you know, your stuff like that. Like everybody's got that. But there are people that are coming out, or game companies or whatever, publishers, whatever. I don't know the exact, I guess game developers, we'll call it game developers, that are coming out with
Developers, yeah.
just amazing titles. And
So on that note, I found a game today that I actually want both of you guys to see because I feel like you're both gonna really like it. So Brooks, I'm gonna need you to pull this one up.
got it.
It's called Pepper Grinder.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, yeah,
Dude,
we
this
got
is
to
a
show.
very good example. This is a good example of a game that, in my opinion, takes the platform thing.
Is there gameplay
flips
or
on
just
its
the
head.
trailer?
I think the trailer has gameplay in it.
Okay. There's a launch trailer. There's a release date trailer. Let's watch the release date trailer. I saw this too. I was blown away. Like, I'm actually like super into this, and I'll make sure
This
that
game
it
looks so much fun.
everybody can see this, right? So
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
they're
you're
all
good.
sharing. So yeah, Andrew, I 1,000% agree.
This game looks so cool.
Sorry if it's.
So you use the drill as your motion.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It looks amazing. I haven't seen the graphics until now. Like, this looks great. Oh man.
And you use like the drill in so many different ways, and you get upgrades for it and
I
stuff.
gotta play this.
This looks really fun.
And just the motion of it all. Big bosses.
Almost like using your momentum to solve puzzles and.
Yeah, you do. You have to use your
Check
momentum
this
going
out too.
through
So
the
I'm
ground.
gonna show you where I saw the launch trailer, and this is phenomenal. Like, the art and everything is amazing. You know what they say? There is art in everything.
Oh, absolutely, there is.
That's also a band he's working with, so. Like, this is beautiful. Very simple, less is more, but very stylized, and the movement's great.
The almost like the grain on the characters kind of reminds me of those oh gosh, what was it? Those Picto Chat DS animations.
Like, look at this.
Yeah, and with this being a Devolver Digital game, I mean, it is a smaller scale game, and really right now, when you look at the gaming industry, that's really where the heart is. There is stuff like that in bigger games. There's plenty of developers on
And,
the
like,
ground
check
who really
this
care about
out.
what they're
Like,
doing. But
this is incredible.
oh yeah,
Like, I love
that's
it.
a badass logo too.
Didn't Devolver
Right.
Didn't Devolver make Enter the Gungeon as well?
Yeah, they were the publisher,
Oh, okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Devolver. I don't.
made some cool stuff.
I'm not sure if they're the ones who make it. I think they're just the publisher.
Okay,
I
so
could be
they're-
wrong.
Yeah, I see. I'm very unfamiliar with who's a developer, who's a publisher, who's X, Y, and Z. They all have their different roles, but like,
I'm just chronically online, so.
no, you're fine. That I need that. I need people like you to like guide me and not say dumb stuff. So, but yeah, dude, that looks. I got to play that. You were so
Cult
right.
of
I'm
the
so glad
Lamb
you brought
was-
that up.
Yeah, Cult of the Lamb was Devolver Digital. Inscription was Devolver Digital. For the as far as like the bigger games that have also done kind of more recently.
Oh,
Yeah,
you cut
Enter
out
the
just a
Gungeon,
little bit.
but was
Could,
there-
could
was
you
there-
repeat the last thing you said? You cut out just a little bit.
Sorry. Yeah, Into the Gungeon. They published that, and then they also published Return to Monkey Island.
Oh,
which
sick.
I am a big
Oh.
Monkey. I am a big Monkey Island fan. I love those games.
I've never
It's
played
little
them, but they look
old
fun.
Computer. They're
The point and
dorky
clicks.
little computer point and clicks. Oh
Mhm.
god, I love them so much.
I gotta start. I
love
gotta
them
get
so
into
much.
those.
They're so nerdy. They're so
Well,
dorky.
as
It's
a big
story-driven
monkey
game.
enjoyer myself. Yeah.
What's funny about the Monkey Island games too is when they were working on those, that the physical editions of those are through Limited Run, and Limited Run is actually based out of North Carolina. So they're based out
Wow.
of Cary, which is right there next to their neighbors with not Unreal, Epic Games. So
Sick.
they have a retail store up here that is just Limited Run games, and so. I mean, there's been plenty of times where me and a couple of my buddies have like drove up there like 2 hours north just to go and buy a couple of physical games directly from Limited Run and then drive 2 hours back.
That's so worth it.
It's so cool because like if you walk in there, it feels like a 90s video rental store. They have like the
that's
crazy
so
shapes,
sick.
like carpet, all the pink neon. It is really cool, and they have a really close relationship with Way Forward Games. Those are the guys who make the Shantae games.
Yeah.
And so anytime a
those are
Shantae game
cool.
comes out, they're the ones who
Yeah.
exclusively make the physicals for it. So like for example, there was I can't remember the name of the game, but there was a lost sequel that Way Forward had held on for years that they wanted to put on the Game Boy Advance, but at the time it didn't, like the first Shantae did not make enough money to justify, so no one wanted to publish it. They held on to the build forever, and they are now working with Limited Run again, and they're now printing actual Game Boy Advance cartridges that they're taking pre-orders for, that people can just get. And eventually what they're going to do is once those run out, they're going to go, cool, now we'll put it on the Switch and the PS4 and PS5 and whatever else. They don't really do a whole lot of Xbox stuff, but I mean, they do a lot of cool stuff where you can walk in there. They have a whole little like hallway, or hallway of bookshelves that are just Star Wars games, and they do this cool thing where they'll put them on Nintendo 64 cartridges, so you can actually buy it from them and put it on your 64. But they'll put them in like those little plastic like action figure cases, as if it's like you're going into Walmart.
You're speaking gospel to me. Also, shout out to Laura, new viewer. Thank you for showing up. Haven't seen you around, but yeah, we're just talking games, and I have a question. Again, not to derail what you were talking about.
No, go for it.
So I'm just infatuated with what you're talking about. I love it. I'm having. If you couldn't tell, I'm having a fucking blast, and I could talk to you. I could literally pick your brain for like days about this kind of stuff. But anyway, let me ask you one more gaming question, and then I want to hop into music. Okay. So I know we've talked about. It's Chloe's mom, not Socks with Stripes anymore. She's going full blown Laura. I love it. That's so sick. Okay, I know that. She's not new. She's great. Shut it. I'm in me mom's car. Broom, broom. Get out of my car. Cody Ponce, what's up, dude? But anyway, sorry. Thank you, Laura. We love you. I do. The most. These guys don't matter. Anyways, so let me ask you a question. I know you're a big Kingdom Hearts JRPG, like RPG guy. What are some other RPGs that you would recommend outside of, because I've played a few, I've played some of the Dragon Quest games. I've played Chrono Trigger. I've played Secret of Mana. I've played Golden Sun. Not a lot, but I've played these games before, and they're more old school. And then there's like Tales of Symphonia, which Andrew loves.
I love Tales.
And then there's
me and Will have talked about our love for the
and
games.
then there's so many others like that. So what games, and it doesn't have to be a specific amount, just any games that you could think of that you would be like, oh, somebody new to JRPGs would like really like this.
Oh, for sure. So I think that if someone wants to get a taste of what like the pinnacle of old school JRPG was, now granted, I have never played Dragon Quest, so I can't really speak to that. I played a demo for 11 and I was like, this is amazing. It plays like 12, which is my favorite Final Fantasy. Right. But I never got past that because I was poor. But I think that if you want something that was a very special project that came out during that era, Chrono Trigger, bar none, absolutely. It is
R.I.P.
It is that game for real, dude. Yeah, because that was the cool thing about it, was that it had Toriyama doing the artwork for it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then you had Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, and I cannot remember his name. But the creator of Dragon Quest, and they were working together to create that game. And then I think
I didn't know the Dragon Quest guy was in it.
Yeah. So they both worked and directed it together. Amazing. And which is one of the reasons why it was so incredible. And not all the music, but a lot of the music, as far as I know, I could be wrong, was also done by Uematsu, who was the guy who did all the Final Fantasy music up to that point. So it was just this like perfect storm of just it was just like this perfect storm of just like all these things that these guys had like kind of paved the way for, and going, let's create this game. And it's just a beautiful game. The sprites are beautiful. I have been clamoring for them to put it on Switch, and I don't know why they put Chrono Cross and not Chrono Trigger. That makes me mad.
Yeah, that is annoying.
So I think that, but I think if someone was wanting something a little bit more modern as a JRPG, then the Persona series is a no-brainer. I think that
agreed.
I have played through Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5. I have a save for Persona 5 Royal that I'm not done with. I'm like 110 hours in, but I'm trying to do everything in
Our
that.
buddy
now
Frank
that
loves Asteroid Mania videos. Like, he loves Persona. He streams those. Like, dude, if he's not doing Pokemon, he's doing Persona. Yeah, I would love to get into those.
It's such an awesome game, and it made me fall back in love with turn-based games, because for a while
that's great.
Dude, why would I do that? I can just like play real-time stuff. And I'm right now, like, I mean, on my Twitch channel, I started playing for the first time Persona 3.
Nice.
I'm playing the FES version, which is essentially like the Royal version,
Mhm.
on my PS2. And eventually
cool.
I'll go back and I'll play Reload. But that's
Yeah.
gonna be a long time later, because like this game's gonna be long. I really think that like Persona is one of those games. Of course, like, you know, games like Live Alive or Triangle Strategy, a lot of those tactical type games are really, really solid.
Yeah, that's sick.
Like those are like the games that I really resonate with when it comes to like, if someone wants to get into those games but they don't want to play Final Fantasy for
Right.
whatever reason, they could get into those games
Yeah.
and have a great time.
Andrew's like-
especially Persona 5.
He is itching to say something, and I want to know what he has. Yes, please.
Can I give you my take?
Yes.
Yes.
Come on.
The reason that
That
they
was
haven't
it.
put Chrono Trigger, the reason they haven't put Chrono Trigger on Twitch yet is because I think they're gonna do an up remake.
I know
That
people are
would
tired
be
of
the
remakes.
thing.
I know they're tired of it.
But like no,
Yeah.
like what they did with Super Mario RPG.
that's
like
what I was
the
gonna say. I
full
was like,
update.
the new I've been itching to play the new Super Mario RPG because I've played the original one like a very seldom amount. Well, a
you
small
know
amount.
they have
That's
all
not
the
correct
original.
grammar.
You know they have all of the original models.
Oh yeah.
You know they
That
have
would be
all of the
oh.
original sprites that Toriyama did.
What a
So they would-
tribute to
it
him
was
that would be.
clean up
Yeah.
the line work. It would be the to me like fist pump of Nintendo Toriyama if they. I hope.
Yeah.
because that's
Also,
what I
hello
think. is-
Chaz. Thanks for showing up. But yeah, I totally agree. Andrew, I think that would be such a great tribute to Toriyama. Is just like, let's take Chrono Trigger. Let's well, they did.
Boom.
Yeah, they did a similar thing with Secret of Mana, but it wasn't
Yep.
received very well. But if they took their time and really polished it and made it like as close to the original as possible while also making it accessible, I think that would be huge, especially obviously not to capitalize on his passing, but to honor his work, because he did
Out of
other
respect.
yeah, he did
100%.
other things other than Dragon Ball. Like he's responsible like for the art for Chrono Trigger and like
Dragon
those
Quest.
yeah, Dragon Quest as well. He did the art for those games, and like he is such a prolific artist that like I think it's time. I think it's about time to have something like that come back into the gaming. Ian would be like zeitgeist, but it's true. It's the word to use. Ian and his
Yeah.
big fucking words. I love him. I love him so much.
Well, speaking of Ian, let's talk about some music stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Go for it, Andrew. You
Yeah.
you
So,
asked the first question.
Will, you are in a band. I would like you to tell me about your Charlotte band.
Yeah, I might as well. Then even then, like, okay, which of the Charlotte?
Okay,
bands?
your
But-
your most active Charlotte band.
Yeah. Okay. So I am the vocalist for a band called The Dirty Lowdown,
Love it.
and we're kind of like, I don't really know what our style would be. I've shown some of the stuff we're working on to people, and people have said, "Oh, you're pop rock, or you're pop punk, or you're post hardcore, or you're swancore," and I'm like, we're just music. I don't
Kind
really
of,
know.
Yeah,
Like I don't really know exactly
Yeah.
what we are necessarily.
alternative essentially. Just
Yeah,
whatever, yeah.
we are a rock band. So it's a really cool project. I joined that project later. I joined that one in the end of 2022. They had parted
Yeah.
ways with their old vocalist, and so then I joined, and I had not been in like a full-fledged band in probably 5 years up to that point. I was
Mhm.
actually coming up
Yeah,
to
and
you go ahead, sorry.
previously you were just. I was just saying previously. Also, the first time you had been in like this level of active band, mainly.
say that
Oh,
one more
no,
time. Sorry, you
'cause-
broke up again for me. Maybe it just
prior you had just been mainly a screamer in those other
Yep.
bands.
Yeah, I
And
used
so
to
this
be in a
was the
lot
first
of
time that was mainly a singer.
yeah.
exactly, yeah, because I used to be in a lot of metalcore bands, and so like I was in two other metalcore bands, and then one of them I quit because I was like, this is very toxic, and then the as metalcore bands are,
Yeah.
and then the other one it imploded on itself, just because like we all just were a little dysfunctional. And we all kind of wanted different things out of the project.
That's fine. That's fair.
Yeah.
So like I had gotten a Facebook memory of my very last show with that band, and excuse me, it had been 5 years, and I was like, man, I can't believe it's been 5 years and I haven't been in a full-fledged band, because like I love writing music, I love making music. My favorite thing though is performing. I just love being on a stage. That's why like all the time when I'm at there's a venue here called the Milestone that's like my favorite place in the whole wide world. And every time I go to a show there, if my homies are playing, I always do a mic grab because I want to be on stage and just like yell into a mic. And and so I had realized that, and I made a post about like, I can't believe it's been 5 years. And then the guitarist for the Dirty Lowdown, the lead guitarist rather, Quinn, I don't think he saw that post. I think he had talked to a promoter that we're all mutual friends with in Charlotte, and they're like, we're looking for a new vocalist. We're trying to find somebody. And said, well, like, have you hit up one of the guys from There's Art and Everything? And he looked at Matt, and he's like, oh, Matt lives in Atlanta, so that's kind of not an option. He hits me up and he goes, hey, would you like to audition for the Dirty Lowdown? And me being someone who had watched the Dirty Lowdown multiple times, was ecstatic. I was like, and kind of humbled to have been asked to do so.
I love that.
So I was very excited. I paid like, I was trying to find a way to like record myself singing with an instrumental they sent me. However, the only app that I could use that would allow me to do so was Snapchat. And I didn't want to try to hold my phone and focus and try to focus on singing. So I paid I searched through the app store and I paid like $5 or $10 just to use an app for like one shot. So I could just like press record, put it away, play the music in the background and just sing. And then just like, okay, cool, cancel. And so then I auditioned that way, played with them a couple times at their practice space, and then they asked me to join. And it's been really cool. We've played venues that I've never played before. Like, it was really fun because like one of the first shows we played together was at a venue that called the Neighborhood Theater in Charlotte, and it was a venue that I had not played in 6 years or something. And so I was very excited to be back there and playing there. And then we started playing venues I've never played before. We played a show in another show in Charlotte that was at a place called the oh my goodness, trying to remember the name of it. Why can't I remember the name of it? That's not a good look.
I did the same. I did the same thing.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of all of the venues in Charlotte. Oh, okay,
the Spokeasy, which is like an outdoor biking bar, and that was really cool. Very hot, but it was very, very cool. And then we played a show in Asheville in a place called Eulogy, which is like a brand new venue. Really, really cool. Lots of like interesting so like they take their menu.
Is that the one that used to be the is that the one that used to be the old boiler room?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Under it's like under a 3-story. Is it the bottom floor of a 3-story building?
Well, so it's on the top, but then you walk downstairs. Now the green room's like downstairs. So I don't know if it was the boiler room.
It may be a different space. There was a venue called the boiler room that we could play at.
Oh, okay.
In Asheville, it's really, really dope.
Yeah, that's y'all's neck of the woods. It's not.
Yeah,
I have to come visit again. I mean, I visited Andrew in December, which is just South Carolina roughly, but North Carolina. One of my good friends is from North Carolina, so I need to come up and you need to show me around. I would love that.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I mean, and I grew up in South Carolina, but I lived always on like the border, so I was just like, okay, hop and skip over, and I was like, Charlotte's home.
I know a lot of good people come from the Carolinas that I know in my life, and Andrew's one of them. So like, it's that and like,
I know it.
The Carolinas and Georgia have some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life, and like, I again, y'all are great examples of that. So,
how is so you've been around the Charlotte scene. I would love to hear like your view of the Charlotte scene through the years, because it's been a weird. Of me being like just south of you guys, like I've seen some of it, but obviously I wasn't like super entrenched. I mean, and I'm sure us has crossed paths in ways just by the Carolinas, the Greenville and Charlotte are pretty like kind of
we're pretty tight
together. Yeah. And more so now than back in the day, for sure. But,
and like shout outs to like Welcome to the Family for like booking so many shows like to get that to happen.
I know it is super cool to see like nowadays whole like amalgamation of the Columbia, Charleston, Raleigh, Charlotte, Greenville scenes all just kind of being like Carolina family together, which has been
absolutely.
really awesome to see. That was not the way
I'm
it
loving
was.
the I'm
at
loving
least
the
for
bonding
me.
that's going on right now. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
very sweet. Like I like that a lot.
My
Yeah.
so my view of the Charlotte scene over the years is like, so when I first joined the Charlotte scene was the early 2010s, when I was just getting out of high school. Like I was like a senior when I started dabbling in it. And then when I graduated, I started going a lot more, and I joined a band at that time.
That's your pop punk roots coming out.
Time.
At the time.
At the time.
But during that era of the scene, my view of it as someone who was newer, who was also still a scene kid, who was really into like metalcore, the scene was not very welcoming back then. It was full of a lot of beatdown and hardcore bands that weren't really kind to people. They were very much like tough guys. If you were someone who was scrawny and wore an Asking Alexandria shirt, you'd be targeted. It was a kind of a rough fucking time, and it was kind of like I liked going to shows, but I would have to be with a group, because if I was by myself, like, and you're on near the pit, they're like, cool, get that guy with the flippy hair because we know he flat ironed it, beat him to a pulp. Not really, but essentially, like it was like you get targeted.
Pretty close. Yeah, that was
pretty close.
That was the Spartanburg. That was the Greenville Spartanburg
Damn,
scene
that
too.
sucks, man.
Yeah,
that
and
time.
and so like it was full of a lot of bands that were full of older guys who were bitter, who were aggravated that they couldn't get out of Charlotte, or the Carolinas in general, and so they would take it out on young blood. And then a lot of those guys quit their bands and got out of the scene. As soon as that happened, a lot of bands that were in my age group, I mean, I'm gonna be 29 next month, or it is April now, so yeah, next month.
Oh wow.
So I'll be 29 next month.
Happy
So,
early birthday, by the way.
Thanks, dog. So like a lot of bands in my age group started to get more presence because we were kind of like the guys left. And so a lot of the people that were in those older bands that were actually chill with people, like you have people like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know Jesse Weaver, there are people that were in those bands that were actually very like, who looked after the younger guys, who were like, that wanted more people to come in. So they were very welcoming, and they kind of like mentors. And so when everybody else left, those guys were sticking around. They were like the big brothers, I guess,
Right.
Of the scene.
Yeah.
And so then you had like a lot of us kind of filling in the scene. And so then the attitude changed, because a lot of us saw how the scene used to be, where everybody was mean. It was a big old like dick measuring contest. No one cared about each other. No one wanted to support each other. And we're like, that's stupid. That's bullshit. We're not going to do that. So then all these bands were like, we're going to support each other. We're going to hang out. We're going to befriend each other. We're going to buy each other drinks. We're going to do whatever we can to support each other, because we're friends. And there's no reason that we can't be friends.
It's
And
like
so
that
then it started
last. Sorry, it's like that last
yeah, you go ahead.
generation of those stubborn, like dickhead dudes. They all dissipated, and all the victims of their bullshit basically came together. And it's like, let's rebuild this scene. Let's be good to each other. Let's make some kick-ass music, have some kick-ass shows, and just be good. That I love the arc, the story arc. That's an anime arc. That literally is just like.
What was really cool also around that time, that, and this isn't a blanket statement, so I want to make that perfectly clear. This is not a blanket statement, but there was a lot of changeover at venues at that same time as well.
Yep.
So you had a lot of the promoters change out. You had like really, really crappy promoters that were like only book the same bands over and over and over again. To then you started getting guys like, shout out Carlin.
I know Carlin.
Started to get people like Carlin in the scene who
New Brooklyn.
really,
yeah,
like
New
you
Brooklyn.
said,
I've played there.
yeah. So really like would do like the Jesse Weaver type thing that would bring these new people into the scene and like mentor them, and he became a promoter and became like, and then you had like Jake and the guys that that's obviously a little more newer, but like that was those people at that time started what we have now.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
exactly. And so like as the years went on, in like from like 2016 on, the scene got bigger because people felt more welcomed. We were pulling people in, and people were just starting bands, because why wouldn't you start a band? It was no longer, oh, you're not a beatdown band that's trying to that's trying to copy Filth or whoever.
Chelsea Grin.
Yeah, like, okay,
Lord
you're
have
n-
mercy.
like you're not a real band, and so like, and
Yeah.
you're not showing up on stage all wearing windbreakers. What are you doing here? Like it
Oh,
was
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it was no longer that. It was like, dude, if you're making tunes, just get with some friends and have some fun. We'll come out and watch
That's
you.
great.
And so then it turns this thing where up until about 2018, 2019, the scene got really, really active. And then that's
Mhm.
when Jake and Dylan started well, originally it was called Carved by Stone, because it was a record label
Carved in stone. Yeah.
Carved in Stone,
Yeah.
that Jake was trying to start up, and he was doing interviews with a lot of bands. They had a podcast, and they were like, well,
Mhm.
this thing feels like a family. Let's make a music festival. And so then they organized a music festival at the Milestone, and they called it Welcome to the Family.
That's
Because
so
the
cool.
whole idea was like taking all these bands from the Carolinas, Georgia, and trying to get them all together in one big room of like, let's just celebrate the fact that we're all here and making music. And
Yeah,
we're all
that's very
friends.
similar to like shout out to the Kapoor House. Like the Kapoor House is kind of doing their own thing, and like Ian with the big ass gig, you know, like
Mhm.
it's sort of a celebration of like everybody coming together and just being this one giant thing. And like there's other places too that I hate that it's slipping my mind right now, but like those are two examples of stuff that we do here in the Atlanta scene that mirrors that. And I don't want to cut you
Yeah.
off. I don't want to stop you from talking about that. There's one more big overarching topic that I want to talk about, then we'll hop into chat and then we'll end. I wish I had
Okay.
I wish I had like another 4 hours with you, because I feel like honestly we could talk that much, but I want to, you know, respect you guys'
Valid.
time. And I love hearing these stories, because I was never a part of, obviously I grew up in Georgia, but like I never was a part of those scenes. But it's really cool seeing the parallels between the scenes that I've seen and like what you guys came up in. But
Yeah.
also have a good night, Laura. Thanks for showing up. We will read your chats later. But I want to ask you, sorry. What do you like to listen to? We went over this before we started, and I know what you're going to say, but I want you to tell them, like, what are some of your biggest influences? Because you and I have one big, giant, major influence on both of us, and like generally what you like to listen to. So it's kind of just inclusive, all inclusive. Like, what do you like? What got you to where you are now, basically?
For sure. So, I mean, I listen to a lot of different types of music. I'm not super picky. There, of course, are there are things that I have reservations for where I'm like, it's not me. Like
totally
I've said
same.
before, I'm not a Five Finger Death Punch Seether type guy like that. Like that's completely beyond me. But my favorite band of all time, and the band that really got me into music, is Yellow Card. I mean,
Yes.
I have a flag behind me,
I
and I've
love
got
that
tons
band.
of Yellow Card merch. And we were even talking about how they're on tour with Third Eye Blind, and I might pay like the $60 to go see Third Eye Blind just to watch Yellow Card play, buy some merch, and then leave before Third Eye Blind
I mean,
plays.
that's so worth it, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to mention this earlier, but save it for the podcast. So when Memphis Mayfire went on tour with Yellow Card, that's when I saw
Yep.
them first. And bro, hold on, let me, excuse me. When I say they sounded just like the record live, Ryan Key's voice, it was peak. Like, it was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't peak, but it was peak. It was great. And I had a chance we did a meet and greet, and I had a chance to meet those guys, but I chose to meet Memphis Mayfire instead, because, you know, my buddy Dylan, he was big into Memphis, and we still are. We still love that band, but like, so I missed my opportunity. I might get another opportunity in the future eventually, God willing. But no, I love when you told me that. I noticed the Yellow Card banner in the background. Yellow Card was a big influence for me too, because, you know, I grew up, we were talking about it, and there was some of the, coming from like the Christian world, like the evangelical Christian Bible Belt area, we weren't really exposed to a lot of heavy stuff because it was like frowned upon by our parents and people around us. So when we started hearing stuff with like down-tuned guitars, crunchy guitars, stuff like that, it really, like, I feel like it changed both of us, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It was a life-changing experience. I remember, well, because like I had said before with Yellow Card, was that, like, I mean, I had never listened to secular music before. I had never listened to something that was like punk influenced or that aggressive. So, because I mean, just the way that everything smacks in, like that big wall of sound that happens during Way Away.
Oh, yeah.
My brother played that for me for the first time in his Ford Focus, and he had blasted that ish, and I was like almost like terrified, but
Yeah.
I had such a big adrenaline rush. I was like, I want more of that.
That's a
Yeah.
great
What's so
song.
funny is that like when I would listen to that song, I would imagine, or when I would, well, not way away, but when I would listen to like Breathing, I would
Oh, yeah.
imagine in my head like fights between Cloud and Sephiroth because
Yeah.
of like the aggression that I was feeling in those songs. But it drove me to like want to like teach myself guitar. It drove me
Yeah.
to want to like get into music, and it led to other pop punk bands, which then led to alternative, and then I got to Linkin
That is
Park,
the pipeline, bro. Yeah, I
and then
totally
I
agree.
got into heavy music. And like I was saying before, like
Yeah.
then by 8th grade, I was listening to like Cannibal Corpse and Death,
Yes.
and I was like so into those bands. But like I remember like just the first time I had heard the breakdown in One Step Closer, and him just being so in your face of like, shut up when I'm talking to
Yeah.
you.
Shut
I was
up when I'm
like-
talking to you. Oh.
Like I was like, gosh, I was like 10, and I just remember losing my
Oh, dude,
mind.
yeah.
I was so excited. Like, and I was like, this feels so good. And then I just was like, I gotta find more. I gotta find
yeah,
more.
dude. So to talk more Yellow Card, I remember, okay, songs that really influenced, I think one of the greatest pop punk anthems, and it should be recognized as an anthem, is the song, it's, I hate that I'm blanking on the name of it. When I need it the most. Well, Light Up the Sky was another one. That was
Oh, yeah.
huge for me. I thought that song was beautiful. Just the drum break, I learned that drum song, and it's on Paper Walls. It is help me out. It's like the first song on that album. I'm
the
blanking.
Takedown.
Takedown, yeah, the Takedown. I think the
Yeah.
Takedown, it should be recognized and appreciated. Of course, I forgot the name of. That's funny, huh? But the Takedown, that song blew me away. I'm terrible at writing drop D and like down tune riffs. I've never been great at it. But they just. And then like the drum part, I could nerd out about this forever. And if I ever meet that band, I'm gonna do it, because you know that in the second verse where it goes
Yep.
it's got that like 16th
Everything
note.
picks up. And
It
it's
took me forever.
like,
Oh, it took me forever to learn that on the drums, because he's going, it's like, but he's going, LP, the drummer on those records from, I guess he made it to Southern Air. I don't know when they transitioned. Maybe Lift to Sail is when they transitioned drummers, but But that's my personal favorite record. Lift to Sail, when it came out, I think it's their most experimental. It's not the most popular choice, but I think songs like Crash the Gates, Lift the Sail, and then Convocation into what's the name of that one song? It goes Convocation into it's a
oh my gosh, Transmission Home.
yeah, Transmission Home's great, and then
Yeah.
like the cover or the cameo from Maddie Mullins on my memory is but
The Deepest Well.
yeah, Deep as well. It's got a great like pre-chorus and everything, and just for reference for the newer members, if anybody's new, I know you guys know me. I have the fucking mental capacity of a walnut, so like I can't really, my memory is doo doo, and like I just can't. It's just there's a clip. This is totally not related. There's a clip of Michael Jackson and he's just doo-doo feces all over the wall, and it stunk so bad. That's my memory, bro. It's horrible. But yeah, dude, I love when you mention Yellow Card. I'm like, I can talk to this guy for days, because
for sure. And-
I love those albums.
and like so Paper Walls is my favorite record.
Mhm.
And so when Paper Walls came out, it was 2007. I was 12. So it wasn't like, I liked it back then because of the way it sounded,
Yeah.
but it didn't resonate for me until I got older. And I remember because I remember back in like when I was in college and I started going through like a mental health crisis and starting to
Mhm.
realize, oh, I like have like these like really terrible thoughts about myself and the world and everything else. And
Yeah.
Paper Walls is a song that like whenever I think about it, I get a little choked up. And a similar thing happens with like with another song they have from their self-titled record, A Place We Set Afire.
Yes.
But for
That's a good
different
one, too.
reasons, because that track is written directly to fans saying, hey, we don't want to break up, but we have to because this thing is over.
yeah.
Like we don't have to say goodbye, but we'll get lost in time. And
Yeah, that's a good one.
But Paper Walls to me was like the chorus of like, hear me now, you will never be alone. And I'm reminded of like like my family and my friends and the friends I've made in the music scene, and the friends I've made online through Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, and my favorite thing for that entire song is when everything cuts out and it's just acoustic, and Ryan goes, "Let's take what hurts and write it all down on these paper walls in this empty house. And when our ink runs out, we'll burn it to the ground." I get goosebumps every time I think about it.
Awesome. Yeah.
But,
that's a great
it's just,
album.
It's so powerful because it's like you take everything that's wrong, everything that you hate about yourself or other things, the things that are troubling you, get it out and then burn it down so you can restart anew. And I resonate with that so much. I went through a lot of like, not to get on a soapbox, but I went through a lot of transformative stuff in my early 20s where I had to kind of like figure out who I was and like what I believed for myself and what my own identity in terms of just like things like my view on like religion and other things. And and it was kind of stressful. Like it was incredibly stressful because I had known something a certain way my whole life, and now I had to question it and do I walk away from it or do I not?
The big deconstruction process of like everything you've ever been taught, everything you ever know. Like I went through that myself. Like I'm 20, I'll be 28 in September, so we're roughly the same age. So we've had very similar upbringings and again, this is for a whole different. I would love to have you back on and just talk about like where we came from and the scenes that we came from and like how different we are now. But so I empathize very heavily with what you went through and how like I have gone through periods where I'm like, I've always known who I was, but like I had to rediscover myself and figure out like when it came down to the ways that I dress, how I present myself, what I look like, how I talk, how I joke, how I like interact with people. And like, I've gone through periods where I like lost that and then I had to find it again. So finding yourself through a band or through art, like you have Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts or any sort of medium is a great thing. And I will always, Caleb says, "How you meme?" Oh, dude, I'm a menace. I have HogChamp because of that, you know. But yeah, he's right. It's self-expression, you know, at its core, and I love hearing that from you, and I love hearing your stories about that because, you know, and I'm sure Andrew can also. He's like 1,000 years older than us, but like but he also like I'm sure Andrew knows exactly those same feelings of like growing and developing and figuring out your voice and like, you know, Foo Fighters for me, that's my sound. Like that's my band. Those are my boys, you know, like that's the band that like, oh, this changed everything for me. You know, learning about like Sound City and then the Sonic Highways documentary and back and forth, like, and then Dave Grohl being who he is. And like, that is my yellow card for you. That's the band that like, okay, that's my sound. I found my voice. I found my sound. And then it led me to American football, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Well, the Chili Peppers came first, but it deepened my love for that band. And I'm a Dave Matthews nerd and a Coldplay nerd, you know, like I love those bands. And like, I think it is very important to find, I think to wrap a nice bow on this, and then we'll hop into chat, is on a very sentimental note, is like finding your voice and your identity through art and through mediums that you enjoy, whether it's video games, film, movies, food, painting, writing, anything like that, I think is super important to our development as people. And if we don't have that and we don't have something to attach ourselves to, like, I feel like that is it makes me sad to know that there are people in the world who haven't found that yet. So that's kind of that's my soapbox off of yours. So, but yeah.
Well, hey, let's. Do you want to hop into chat or do you want to call it here and then do chat after?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. Fuck all y'all listening on Spotify.
If you don't come to this live stream, that's your fault.
Yeah.
We'll tell everybody where they can find you if they want to talk nerdy Kingdom Hearts or if they want to stream or something like that.
I've linked your in the description, and please follow Will everywhere you can find him. He's a sweet guy, very genuine, very great. He's great. He's one of the greatest. Will is greatest. I'm not gonna get into that. I need to work on that impression.
Tell everybody. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh hell yeah, he's got a voice, baby.
So yeah, I mean, you can find me a lot of places. I mean, I'm on Twitter, Threads, Instagram. I'm on Twitch. I'm a Twitch partner, and right now we're streaming Persona 3 FES.
Nice.
And we'll figure out what we're gonna do after that. I might do a proud mode of Kingdom Hearts 1 because I've actually never done
I
that
gotta
before.
see that.
So
I've started it and I haven't finished it, but I gotta see that.
I've heard it's tough, so I might be doing that as well. And all that is under the same name. Hi, my name is Zip. That is ZIPP. I'm also on YouTube. I have some video essays, and I'm working on more. I've actually got one that's about Final Fantasy X that I have started the groundwork for. It's not going to come out for a while, though. I'm waiting until the 25th anniversary to drop it. But I do have a video that did fairly well that goes over the history of Final Fantasy Versus 13, its legacy, how it related to FF13, and it turned into Final Fantasy 15, and then was kind of reintegrated into Kingdom Hearts 3. And I made some predictions there that ended up ringing true because a week later they dropped a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 that essentially showed what I predicted. So I was very proud of that. People said I manifested that. I wish I could have like taken credit for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all that. I'm also, I mean, I have projects I'm working on. There's one that's not announced yet that I'm working on for Charlotte. That's going to be very different from the other projects I'm in. But I'm in the Dirty Lowdown. You can follow us on Spotify, anywhere else you get your streaming music, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Same thing with There Is Art in Everything. And we've got some really special stuff we're working on with that as well. So yeah, lots of really fun, exciting stuff we're working on. And yeah, I'm just constantly trying to stay busy.
Yeah, same, man.
Yeah, we're gonna link that Final Fantasy Versus video in the description as well.
Oh, sweet.
Of the audio and video. So if people want to just go direct to that video, because that was, I think I even messaged you whenever
that one's the one that popped off.
I was like, yo, dude, this is crazy.
Dude, it blew my mind when I posted it. I was like, okay, maybe I'll get maybe 100 views. That'll be cool. Because in the past, I've never really had anything more than that.
That's awesome.
And then put it there, and I'm like, oh, it's 150. Oh, 500. Oh, 1K. What is going on? And
I love that feeling.
Yeah, and so I've got other videos I'm working on that are going to be coming out soon. It's just a matter of finding the time. I've got my hands on so many things at any given time.
Yeah, I feel
just
you.
Finding the time.
Yeah, I feel Andrew and I can empathize with that for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got a review and analysis for FF7 Rebirth that I've been trying to get knocked out, but whenever that drops, it'll happen. I'm not worried about the timeline on it. Just that's the next video that I'm working on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'm excited to see that one.
Sign us out, Andrew.
Well,
do your thing, Bubba.
Hey, if anybody wants to listen to this after the fact, we will have this on the Things podcast channel on YouTube and on Things We Like podcast on any podcast platform that you might want to listen to audio wise. Spotify also has video as well as more. Subscribe, go check out at my name, follow Bad Look Brooks and at Music by Drew for our dumb socials. And yeah, Brooks, send us out.
Happy
baby.
April Fool's Day, you bastards. Happy birthday, Gadiel. I love you.